Luvafoodie iced tea. 4 clean drinking iced tea flavors. Lemon lovers, passion fruit lovers, raspberry lovers, and blood orange lovers iced tea. Eat clean, be well and stay well with our clean eating spice blends at Luvafoodie.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is not Monday. It feels like a Monday. It is Tuesday after Labor Day. So we wanted to keep our show still weekly on, so I switched it to Tuesday this week. And I have a very special guest, a woman entrepreneur who many of you know if you live in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis and if you shop at Target, Junita Flowers. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Michelle. So great to be here today.
Thank you, thank you. We were talking a little bit. Somehow we know each other, probably in the entrepreneur space, the female space. We're all kind of connected here in the Twin Cities, and we try to support and help each other as much as we can. And your story is inspiring for all the entrepreneurs, for all the women entrepreneurs, for all the people in the food space. I really wanted you to be on so you can share your success, because kudos to you getting in Target, and not just a couple Targets, but I went on your website and I saw where you had distribution at Target, and it looked like across the country. And then I went to my local Target, the one nearest me, and I bought a couple bags so I could make sure I tried them before our show. So, excuse me, Junita, let's talk a little bit about what you did prior to starting your company, and can you share a little bit about your own background?
Yeah, so I'm a lifelong Minnesota resident, and I have 2 children, a huge family. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and part of just growing up in the Twin Cities and growing up as a part of a big family, we spent a lot of time in the kitchen. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, would come over to our house, help my mom prepare meals for the week. And that's where all the stories and all the connections would happen. And so I just have some of the best memories of my childhood, of times in the kitchen where food was a part of it, but really it was the connection and the stories, learning about the history of my grandmother and my family. And so that just always was something that always just rings true for me. And so fast forward to adulthood, as a picky eater, when I wanted to, start to have some of the meals that I grew up on, I had to call my mom and call my grandmother to get those recipes and begin to prepare those things for myself. And cookies were one of those things. I'm a really picky eater. I don't like frosting. I don't like, there's so many things I didn't like. I'm like, I'm just going to make my own. And so I never thought I was going to have a cookie company. It really was just for me to be able to find cookies that I enjoyed. But then you fast forward, you get married, you have kids, and I had a really, really, really tough relationship. And my way to sort of manage and cope during those really tough times was to go back to what I know. It was baking. And baking was sort of this mental escape that allowed me to get lost in just the craft of baking. Again, not because of a business, but it was really just to be able to manage and cope. And then you fast forward, and from there, I started having all these cookies, and I would make them for friends and family. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, actually, since I was 12 years old. And so those things just started to connect. And then once I kind of got on the other side of life where I was in a healthy place again, I really wanted to use my voice as a way to create change. And so I went back to what I knew in the kitchen growing up, using food to connect people. And that's really what Junita's Jar is all about. And so while it seems like, you kind of start your business and then you have all these successes, I really started my company back in 2006. So it was this journey of 3 failed attempts because I was in an abusive relationship. So every time life got really hard, I had to stop and start my business. And so even though I started in 2006, it felt like I always had to put this dream aside to be able to just manage life. And so in 2015, when I decided that I was really ready to transition and just make a clean break and start over with my life, I decided that this was the time that I really wanted to figure out what it would look like for me to combine this thing of making cookies and raising awareness about the topic of relationship violence. And so I did a lot of research. I didn't even know what a social enterprise was at that time, but I knew I didn't want a nonprofit, but I wanted my cookie company to do something meaningful. And so I just kind of spent time researching that. And then that's when I learned about Impact Hub. And so I got connected with Impact Hub. They're local to the Twin Cities, but there is a
Okay.
global movement with Impact Hub. And then from there, I connected with just many different people in this space. And that was the introduction to my Finovation Fellowship in 2019. So I launched Junita's Jar in 2018, became a fellow with Finovation Lab in 2019, and just kind of built it from there. And then, yes, in 2022, we launched in Target.
So I'm going to show everybody this brown sugar oatmeal cookie. I know you've got a chocolate chip flavor. And how many flavors do you have?
We have 3 flavors, so brown sugar oatmeal, chocolate chip, and then oatmeal peanut butter chocolate chip. But the 2 flavors, brown sugar oatmeal and chocolate chip, are in Target.
Okay, and that's where I found them at my local Target. Now you going back to your grandma. Did she actually, was this one of the recipes you grew up on? Was the brown sugar oatmeal?
No, just the chocolate chip. The brown sugar oatmeal is an accident recipe.
Really, it's very
Yeah.
good.
Yes, that's actually my favorite. And it was an oatmeal raisin cookie that I had made for years. That was a recipe that I kind of just tweaked over the years. I've probably used every flour on the market, tested, but like just really trying to figure out how do I make a cookie that I really like. And so that really was an oatmeal raisin cookie. But then the raisins were just, I don't like raisins. But then I was like, well,
Neither do
let's
I.
so like but think beyond yourself, Junita. And so as I was building my business, I have, we have a machine that makes our dough and cuts our dough, and the raisins would always get cut on the wire. And so it would take an extremely long time to make the oatmeal raisin dough. And so we didn't make it that often because it wasn't cost effective. But I really liked the base of the batter. And so after really trying to figure out everything on the planet to figure out how do we make this work, I was like, I think if I take the raisins out, there's enough in this cookie to still make it a really good tasting cookie. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really and then I just did a sort of this crowdsourcing for the name. I had like 4 different name options, had my followers on social media vote on what they thought was the favorite. And that's literally how brown sugar oatmeal was launched.
Interesting. So let's talk about your packaging. What does Hope Munchies On mean?
So Hope Munches on. So Junita's Jar is a movement all about spreading a message of hope. In 2019, I delivered a TED Talk. And
Yes, I want to talk about that. Where did you do that? Where did you do that, and what did you talk about?
So it was here in the Twin Cities. It was a TEDx Matamidi, and the topic was "It All Begins with Hope," and it really tells the story of Junita's Jar, but how hope came into all of this. So I talk about how in 2015 I made the transition where I was ready to just start a new life. Well, during that time, from 2015 to 2016, was really a time where I was battling depression. And during that time, I literally would wake up, put my kids on, get my kids ready for school, put them on the bus, and I would get back in the bed and I would sleep all day, trying to just escape the sadness that I was feeling because my life just did not look like it was what I thought it was. I didn't feel like there was anything left for me in life. I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die. So the only way to try to shut up all the things was to try to sleep it off. And then after doing that for about 9 months, it was one day where I literally was laying in bed. I couldn't sleep. And it was as I'm just kind of staring in bed, and it sounds to somebody who's not struggling with depression or kind of figuring out what their path is, it sounds like duh. But I was laying there and it was like, but Junita, what if there's more? Like my mind all of a sudden was open to, well, maybe there's more to life than what my life had become. And what if I took a chance on it? So it was like in that moment, I almost had this ray of hope that there may be more left for life for me. And that if I just try, I could probably figure it out. Now we know you don't just wake up and then you're magically, oh, look. But it was that glimmer of hope, like this just a small amount where I was open to it that really began to transform my life. And over a series of a year and a half, many different things happened, and I was able to get healthier and feel more empowered and really began to take a chance on Junita and this dream that I had to launch this cookie company. And so that's where the message of hope comes on.
Okay, and Junita, did you get professional help, spiritual help?
Both. My faith is an integral part of who I am, but when you're in those deep, dark moments, it's really hard for your faith to get through, for anything to get through, because you're just so broken. But
Right.
I had a therapist, and I call it my special sort of formula of prayer and therapy. Like between the two, you had your group of people that were really rooting for you and praying for you, and then me doing the work in my therapist's office. And I was in therapy, still am, for about 7 years. During those 9 months, I wasn't going at that time because, again, it was just so dark. You just don't know how to get out of it. But it was that day, literally, when I felt like, but Junita, what if there's more? That my heart opened up to accept that there might be more to life. And I started slowly reaching out for help. And that's when I got re-engaged with my therapist. And that's when I got re-engaged.
Okay, we can't hear Junita right now. Junita, can you hear me? Somehow the volume, okay,
Yes,
you had to
yes.
stop for a minute. Well, first of all, I have to say, commend you for getting out of that hole, that dark hole. Depression is a spiraling hole, and unless you get out, you don't get better. And so having children, I'm sure that was a big motivator for you to figure it out and get out, but also for yourself. So I compliment you for doing that, and then turning your positivity into basically the love of making cookies. And so you had mentioned, do you give back then a percentage? So every time I buy a Janita's cookie jar, where's the percentage, or what are you giving back?
Yep. So before COVID, we were hosting what we call cookies and conversations. And so we used the 10% of our proceeds to support the cookies and conversations. So we partner with college students and leadership organizations because those are students that are looking for community service and they're looking to make change within their group. So they would recruit their peers. I brought in a panel of experts, a therapist, a survivor of relationship violence, and then someone from the medical community, typically a nurse practitioner. And each of them would speak about relationship violence from their professional perspective. It was a 2-hour conversation series. I brought in the cookies and the beverages, and we just would talk with college students. And we chose college students because the 18 to 24 demographic for young women, you're 3 times more likely to be in an abusive relationship during those years of your life than any other time of your life. Because there's so many things going on, so much transition. You're resetting roots if you're going off to college. And so really wanted to make those conversations normal for college students so they can learn to support one another and build community. And so we supported those initiatives during that time. Then COVID happened and we could no longer meet in person, which is when we redesigned our packaging. Our bags are purple because purple is the color for relationship violence awareness. So really leaning into our packaging to do some of the messaging as we rebuild what our give back will look like now that we are post-COVID. So right now we really are focused on building the brand and building the cookie company, because if we're not a thriving and profitable cookie company, then we won't have anything to give back. So that's what I'm spending the time right now, is really focusing on building the brand and a brand awareness as we're retooling what our give back portion will look like and what our part in the community will look like as we continue to raise awareness. I also run the board of Tubman, which is a local nonprofit organization in the Twin Cities that's all about providing safety, hope, and healing for survivors of relationship violence. So still giving back in the community, but it just looks right now.
Right, right. Well, those are all very empowering, positive things for you to be working on in your company to help other women get the support and the resources that they need. So that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about how, for those of us that are listening and watching, how did you get into Target? I know there was a series of, I guess, auditions that you went through, but pretend I don't know anything about it and walk us through how that happened. And because you just got in the spring, I want to say June. You got distribution around June in
June of
Target.
2022, we launched in Target.
Yep, yep. So
Yes.
back up prior to June, walk me through the steps that
And
got you
can you
on the
still hear me,
shelf.
Michelle?
Yes, I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. We are having some problems with Janita's volume, but can you hear me, Janita? Okay, we'll see if she can figure that out. Um, this happens sometimes, everybody, when you're doing StreamYard, Skype. the other person's connection may not be positive. But yes, I can see you, Junita, but I can't hear you. So I don't want to share her story without her. So let's talk about being an entrepreneur. Isn't it difficult? it's especially it's especially challenging, I think, for us women. There's so many hurdles facing us, and I think Junita's story is pretty empowering because she was able to do a successful launch at Target stores. And let's see, is she coming back on? Let me try to.
You hear me okay now?
I can. Let's get rid of this one. I can hear you now. I knew you'd figure it out, Janita. I was trying to sort of share your story without sharing it. Whoops. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, everybody in the LinkedIn land, LinkedIn viewers, but we're going to make this work. So everything is good now. Thank you for
Yes.
your patience. So, Janita, how did you get into Target? What were the steps involved?
You know, I would, I think the biggest thing in as we're building our food business, I mean, it's a lonely road as an entrepreneur, but really connecting with the support organizations that exist to support, CPG brands. And in the Twin Cities, I think we have a rich ecosystem that is creating tools, resources, and connections to help us grow and launch our businesses. And so in 2020, Grow North, which is led by Allison Hahn, hosted what they call a pitch fest. And it was specifically for women-owned businesses and BIPOC-owned businesses. And you had an opportunity to perfect your pitch. And so as a part of the pitch fest, Grow North also brought on a consultant to meet with all of the different businesses as we prepared our pitch deck, because you had to send your pitch deck in, and then you also got to practice your pitch. And we had 4 minutes to pitch to Target, as well as many local grocery stores and co-ops that were also part of the Pitch Fest. I was one of those businesses. I believe there were maybe somewhere around 40 businesses, and you're pitching in front of everyone. And as a part of that, that was the first introduction to a Target buyer. And from that, I connected with a buyer during that particular event. But over time, we just kind of lost touch. I later learned that buyer had moved on. So there was a vacancy. So that's why my nothing happened in the process. But then as I was also a part of the Stacy's Rise project, which was separate, but through that program, which is a national competition, or actually, I won't say a competition, it's a national support resource where you get to connect with executives on the Frito-Lay brand and work on building your business, whatever you feel that is the tool that you could use additional assistance with. And so from making connections there, where I had the opportunity to tour Target from the supplier's perspective, I was able to reconnect with Target. And so between those two support resources, I was able to, present to Target initially and then present a second time. And that's when I was able to get in front of them. And they really liked my product and was able to take it further and then pitch for the category review. And then the rest is, as they say, history. But we're really working in present.
Absolutely. Now, Junita, do you have a co-packer that makes these cookies for you and ships them to Target? A local co-packer?
Initially, we had a co-packer when we launched in Target. But as you hear all the things when you're building your business about the relationship between the brand and the co-packer. And unfortunately, I'm not working with that co-packer any longer. It just wasn't a good situation, but you make the most of it. But through the Target, when we were preparing for Target, they had made about half of our product and they just dropped us. They felt it was too time consuming to make our product. And so from there, I already had the equipment on hand. And so we just dug deeper and we started making it ourselves. I am in the process of working with the new co-packer, but we haven't officially turned the product over. But we're doing what we've been doing all these years, and just continue to perfect it until we find that right partner.
So you have a warehouse, and it meets all the requirements by the FDA and all the OSHA and all those there's a lot of certificates that you have to have, and you have it right in place to produce and manufacture your own cookies?
Yes, so my warehouse is separate from our production facility. Our warehouse is in St. Paul, our production facility is in Minneapolis. So yes,
Okay.
we've gone through all the licensure to be able to launch, and yeah, everything above board.
Good for you. So how is your company structured? You being the founder and owner, do you have then other people under you that are doing the actual production, or how is it structured?
Yep, so we're an employer, so I have staff that work in our production, as well as we have staff in our logistics that helps in the warehouse. Like any other food company, you know, it's a big responsibility to take on the role as an employer. But it's been also a rewarding opportunity because as a business that's growing, not only am I building a brand, I'm also creating jobs within our community. And so that's a sense of pride that I feel really, really good about. And as a Black woman in business and having other, you know, I hear all the time from other employees that I brought on, and like they've never worked for a Black woman in food before. And they like just so much inspiration that wasn't even a part of the business plan, but it's just who I am and how I show up. We're able to make a change and make an impact. So it's, you know, it's a big commitment, but I embrace it fully, and it's been a really, really great ride. I have support organizations that I work with that continue to help build the infrastructure of Janita's Jar, because as you're growing, that's always tweaking. But
Yeah,
it's like anything else, you know, you got to be nimble, but also have structure and be okay with both. And in any given day, I can step into any of the roles that my company has right now and be able to make it work. And so it's, would I trade it? Absolutely not. Have I learned a lot? Absolutely. But that's a part of growing. That's a part of building a business.
absolutely. Janita, so did you have investors or angel investors? I mean, to do what you've done, to produce and manufacture your own cookies, you've probably had to have some financial support.
Yep. So I don't have any investors as far as like equity investors yet. I did do debt financing when I launched, prepare for the Target launch. So that's kind of where we are right now. We're in the process now, though, of looking for a new space as we're growing, because we've just kind of outgrown the space that we're in. And you have to continue to look at and consider other ways to fund your business. To date, though, we have not done any equity investments.
Is that something that is in your plan?
As we grow, I mean, you know, as I continue to learn and connect with some of the ecosystem partners, it seems like that's the way that you have to be able to be open to in order to grow your cookie company. And I really
Right.
want to grow it in a way that has an impact beyond just what I'm doing now. So I'm definitely open to it as we continue to grow.
Right. So if I go to your website, I can order my cookie or your cookies online, and then I can also go to a Target that the store locator gives me near my house. What other distribution channels are you in besides Target, or are you just on Target? Are you on Target.com too?
Yes,
Okay, so and are you on Amazon.com?
we're just launching our Amazon store as we speak.
Okay, so by fourth quarter, you'll have distribution available for Amazon.
Yes,
Yep.
by October 1. Yep.
And then what about a, a broker or distributors? Say I'm Safeway or I'm Publix and I want to bring in your cookies, or I'm, down in Lowe's Foods in North Carolina. How can I get your cookies?
So, so my primary customer base has been and continues to be the corporate gifting space. We have a presence in hotels and concierge. Kind of that's been like the bread and butter for Janita's Jar over the years, and we continue to grow those platforms. Target was our first retail grocery outlet.
Okay.
It has been amazing. So I do have a broker that supports our account with Target, but from all of our other accounts, we manage all of those in house. And it's been a great way to build. It's been a great way. The hard part about building it that way, though, is that you don't always get to connect with the end consumer. You work with the buyers, but they're purchasing and then they distribute. So working with retail, you're directly working with the end consumer. And so that's just a different way of how we're doing business now.
Hmm.
And it's just another way that we're learning and growing into.
So, is your plan to get it with a national distributor like KeHE or UNFI so they can sell your product to all the different grocery accounts across the country? Is that in your pipeline?
Um, I'm not sure yet. We're still building out. We still have a lot of room to grow in the hotel space, in the
Okay.
gifting space. It's just a really big market. And so we'll continue to do what we're good at, and we're going to continue to perfect. Target has been just an amazing opportunity, and we want to just perfect that and continue to grow in that space. And then as we feel like we've, really know what we're doing and we're just really good at that, we'll continue to grow and expand into other markets where we know that we can be successful and we've built up our customer base. Because when you move into retail, it's a little bit different because you now have your presence is larger and you have to be able to speak to those customers across the country. And so by adding grocery stores without, before you really solidify your presence in all those communities, it just makes it harder to be able to grow those accounts. So
Right.
we're really working to grow what we have and do a really great job at that and then grow beyond that.
Right. That makes sense. It totally makes sense. So right now you've only been in Target a couple months. Are you meeting their expectations, their POS, their weekly requirements? Because we know I used to sell to Target for many, many years. There's partners online which will give you their weekly report and slow moving or what are you going to do about it? And it's challenging.
I have to say, Target has been an amazing retail partner. It can be intimidating going into big box retail, but between the buyer and then just the whole buyer team for the cookie cracker category, has just been amazing to work with. They've been supportive, and then we're doing our part on our end. We're meeting our production. We're delivering. We're marketing, and now as I'm continuing to grow, I've just brought on a marketing firm. They're redoing our website, and then they'll be taking over our social media and continuing to grow our footprint so that we can continue just to grow and support our presence inside Target. But they've been an amazing retail partner to work with, to grow with, to learn from. It's just been a really great experience. And you hear all the horror stories or the scary stories. It can be really intimidating to approach any of the big box retailers. So I think the magic success really is the internal team of the retailer and how well they work with the brands and then how committed and the brands are to building their presence inside those retailers. I'm still new at it, so I can't tell you the history and how but I can tell you that right now it's working really well and I've learned a lot and we've grown a lot. And I look forward to just continuing to growing our footprint in Target.
Great. And I have to say, when I sold at Target, I sold for large CPG companies with national brands, national names, national marketing budgets. So it was a different
Mm-hmm.
scenario for me. And I think one of the things that I've seen Target do and other large customers in the last probably 5 to 10 years is really look at the little guys, look at the smaller companies out there, look at the entrepreneurs, look at the minorities, and open space for companies like Junita's Jar,
Mm-hmm.
Luvafoodie. you know, it's because we know there's all the big national cookie brands, and we know there's all the big national spice brands out there, we know private label also exists, which also takes space from national and smaller companies. But I think consumers today, especially millennials, and people want to know what your story is. You have a story behind your cookies. You have an empowering story about what happened to you and what motivated you to get back on track. And Love of Foodie has a story. I had heart disease. I do have heart disease. It focused me on making the brand extremely clean and coming out with a salt-free line also. But customers, they want a story. And when you're dealing with the big box cookies or the big spice companies, you don't know their story. You don't know, the person who started that company. You don't have that face in front of you. You just know it's a huge corporation. And so I think it's really smart for Target and other companies and other grocery stores to look at the smaller companies and give us a chance, give you a chance to be successful, because there's no reason that you can't be as successful as somebody excuse me, somebody who's been around for 40 some years or 50 years or whatnot. So I'm happy to see that in the marketplace. And I think with COVID, more and more companies, more and more entrepreneurs started doing their own thing. And so um, it's to our benefit to see that you're getting that support. And thank you, Target, for supporting you. That's very cool.
Yes, and I think connecting with the local ecosystem to be able to access some of those opportunities, because I would not have been able to access the opportunity on my own. As
Right.
much as the big box retailers want to support, but if we're not plugged into and connected with some of the ecosystem partners that are there to support us, it's already hard enough to build our businesses by ourselves. And
Absolutely.
they're there to try to eliminate some of the roadblocks and the obstacles, and provide connections and resources and tools. And that's what Allison at Grow North was doing. That's what Kayla Yang Best at Season Specialty Foods. She connected with 301 Inc. and I was able to work within their pro bono program of just learning about supply chain and building your product and working with co-manufacturers. All of this information that it would take me a longer time to figure out on my own. So if there's something that I can encourage other entrepreneurs to do, is yes, do your due diligence, do your work, build your business, but connect with the ecosystem partners that exist to support our businesses, because they're looking for you and we're looking for them. And both parties are only successful when we come together and work together, because they want to know if they're making a difference and our businesses can benefit from the difference they're making. And together we can make change and create opportunities and walk into those opportunities, like getting on the shelf at Target or getting on the shelves at Whole Foods or the local co-op. It's harder to do it by yourself. People do it, but having the support system just makes it a little bit, takes out some of the bumps along the way.
Absolutely. And somebody without your back, I mean, I had a large CPG background, so I knew a lot going into starting a brand and what it would take. But somebody like you didn't have any retail experience. You didn't have any production experience or logistic experience. That took a lot of a big learning curve. And so the support that you were able to bring in helped you get that much faster up to speed. And so I think that's a good point to look around and say, hey, there are resources out there in your market. Find them and use them and have them
Yes.
help you, because you will be more successful with help. I mean,
Building your network. And I think another big piece, when I decided to be a part of the Grow North Pitch Fest, I decided, because I was looking for opportunities to just continue to practice my pitch. Like, because I've always heard, you may pitch to, this retailer or that retailer 3 or 4 times before you get a yes. So I was just looking for opportunities to have practice with my pitch. I was not looking for, I thought it would be great, but I didn't think anything was going to happen necessarily from it. The opportunity for me at the time was I get to practice my pitch, but in front of a live audience, and possibly get feedback. So even, like, that's something that you can't do on your own. And the more you practice it, the better we get.
exactly.
It was a 4-minute pitch. So I'm learning, like, okay, you take your pitch deck, which is like usually 18 pages, 20 pages, and how do I, emphasize what my business is about in 4 minutes? And so it helps you to really hone in on your messaging and be really succinct so that you're getting across what's important, but you're not boring anyone, and you're talking about the things that are really going to be valuable to the buyer and also elevate your business. And so those things are so priceless. And I think Grow North is, if the application period isn't open, if it's already closed, then I know the Pitch Fest is coming up, but it may still be open. But I know they're having another Pitch Fest this year, with the kind of similar network of buyers that will be a part of the Pitch Fest.
Great, great. Well, that's exciting to know. And everybody out there who's listening and watching, look up Grow North. Tell us a little bit about the Stacy's Rise movement, because you got
Stacey's
involved
Rise
with
Project.
them. Yeah, yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, so that's a PepsiCo initiative. Stacy's is a female-owned brand, or was founded by a female, and now is owned by the PepsiCo. But it's
And those are
their
those delicious Stacy pita
pita chip.
chips, which I
Hmm.
love and
Yes.
eat like all the time.
So inspired by that brand, they launched the Stacey's Rise Project, which is, the motto is helping women rise. And so it's really supporting female entrepreneurs in this journey in the food space. And so I was a part of the second year that they had the Stacey's Rise Project. They brought in 15 female entrepreneurs. It's an application process. I think the year that I was a part of it, there were 1,600 applicants across the country, and only 15 were selected. And as a part of that, you get a cash grant, and then you get the mentoring support. And while for me, I was a part of it during COVID. So of course the cash grant was like priceless because we were all struggling. But the piece that I cannot stress the value of enough was the mentoring, and then the mastermind group that I started because of Stacey's Rise Project, and we still meet to this day. So 2 years later, we still meet every Friday. It's those support pieces that go on beyond when the grant is spent. I still have the tools. And so I was able to use the mentoring connection and relationship with the Stacey's Rise Project to redesign my packaging because I knew I was preparing for retail. And so I have what I consider state-of-the-art packaging that has a really bright presence on the shelf. I can
Yes.
show up and look like any other national brand. And I was able to do that as a part of my mentoring with the Stacey's Rise Project. And so I'm so proud of the packaging. I'm so proud of the work that I got to do with their team. And it's continuing to just give past the time that I was with the Stacey's Rise Project.
Yes, and I think that's fantastic. And I'm gonna look into that myself. And I'm gonna now. So the chocolate chip, I'll try open. These were your grandma's
That's the
recipe.
recipe I
This
grew up
was your,
on, yes.
yeah. And I
Now,
did try these already. And did she make them bigger than these? Because these are, I like them because they're a little bite sized, but I assume they were bigger.
so all the innovation has to happen. So when I first started making them, they were, big bakery fresh cookies. But as I, was looking for ways to launch into retail, I knew I wanted a shelf stable cookie, but I didn't want to add preservatives. And so in order to do that, we had to make it, a crisp cookie. And so, and really kind of how that came, I used to sell frozen cookie dough. And when I would do the samples, I would cut them up into those small little pieces, and customers would say, "Where can I buy this little cookie?" And I'm like, "I don't sell those. I sell
Mm-hmm.
big, this frozen dough." And so it was through after kind of thinking about how do I launch this retail product. It was from hearing what customers were saying all along. They want these little small cookies, and then how do I make that so it's shelf stable, but we're not adding preservatives? And so through that, I worked with one of our state funded programs, AURI, which is the agricultural program, and they helped me tweak the recipe and create a shelf stable product. They built out my nutrition label. So again, being connected with the ecosystem to be able to launch your business in a way where I had food scientists that were able to help tweak my recipe without the added expense that would probably cost if I had brought in a consultant myself. And so AURI is state funded. So it's a program that it's a reduced cost support, and they help to get my recipe to where it is today.
So, Junita, what is the shelf life of a bag of cookies?
6 months.
So, Best Buy, I bought these a couple weeks ago. Best Buy 9/2022. So, Best Buy September this month.
Yes, and so really they have a year shelf life, but we only sell them with a 6 month shelf life because that's where we feel like the product tastes the same from the moment it's out the oven to the time the customer eats the cookie. When you create a shelf stable product like that, our cookie it's not gonna mold on you. The taste would may be different if you eat that 2 years later, um, but from the time out the oven to about 6 months later, for us, that's what tastes exactly the same. There was not a difference in taste. And so that's how, you work with, you know, your specialist and you kind of come up with the shelf life.
So you shipped Target probably
Weekly.
in May or so.
Our initial launch, yes, and we ship on a weekly basis.
And okay, so and then you adhere the Best Buy stamp with each lot that
Yes.
goes out. Yeah. Well, I also like your product because it's clean. As you mentioned, that's Luvafoodie's all about clean eating, clean drinking, no preservatives, no junk, and you have to be true to that. And
Yes.
sometimes that means a shorter shelf life. That means, but it is what it is, and it's better to keep it clean and be true to that than throw a bunch of stuff in there that will let it sit out on the shelf for another 6 months. Isn't good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
what I would feed my family, so I feel good about it.
and that's what I say. If I can't put something in my mouth, whether it's a beverage, whether it's something I'm eating, why would I serve it to my friends or my family? And why would I endorse it? I would never do that. And I like to keep people on the show that are, if it's a food space person or a beverage person, that it's clean, because that's kind of what that is what Luvafoodie is all about. And well, Junita, I've learned so much about you today, your company, your mission, your struggles, your journey, which is going to continue to grow. And and don't be afraid of the ups and downs and the pivots that happen along the way, because we know that's being part of an entrepreneur. Package change happens. What your new funding or your giving back is going to look like. You haven't fleshed that out yet, but you will. And you got a great partner like Target, and so I think together you will be very successful this year, and continue to, I guess, just follow your heart and your dreams, and know what's best for you is what's best for your company.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We know that there's a lot of work that goes into every single product that a CPG entrepreneur puts on the shelf, whether it's on Amazon, on your own website, on Target, at your local co-op. There's a whole lot of work that goes into all of our products. There's a whole lot of learning that goes into all of our products. And so it is about staying the course, being true to who you are as an individual and as a brand. And whatever those doors or opportunities that are meant for each of us to experience and walk through, those doors will open for us.
Absolutely. And those connections will happen. And I believe, meeting you in person, I've known about you, you've known about me. We just haven't connected until today. But the connections are really important, because at the end of the day, that's what lasts the
Yes,
longest.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So best of luck. If I can help you in any way, I will continue to follow you and watch you. And I know the University of Minnesota, both grads of University of Minnesota, and you were ridden up in this past month.
Yes, yes.
And so congratulations to you for that.
Thank you so much. It's been really great to talk to you. Continued success to you as you build out both your products and your content pieces. You've just been an inspiration to so many as well. So thank you so much for having me on the show today, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great week, everybody. And we will see you next Monday at 1 o'clock Central Time. Thank you.